Release the Kraken!
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 bad movies that were successful.
Oh my God! Come on!
I gotta be man. I gotta be man.
Oh, that's diabolical.
Whew.
For this list, we'll be looking at films that were mostly poorly received by critics, but still had studios laughing all the way to the bank. The worse they are and the better they did, the higher they'll rank. What movie do you think didn't deserve its revenue? Let us know in the comments. Number 20, the G.I. Joe franchise. G.I. Joe as a concept is something that strictly screams 1980s, so our expectations weren't exactly high when producers decided to create live-action adaptations around the turn of the 2010s.
He gave up?
He never gives up.
The first one was quite cartoonish and silly. While it was a modest financial success, Hasbro found a winning formula with Retaliation. By scaling back the budget, they made an additional $73 million worldwide. But even with the addition of The Rock and slightly toned-down action sequences, it was clear they still didn't quite know what to do with the property.
Drive it like you stole it.
As your good friend, you need a new catchphrase.
A spin-off titled Snake Eyes is scheduled for release in October of 2021. Let's hope that a centralized focus on one character will yield worthwhile returns and an enjoyable movie. Number 19, the Grown Ups franchise. With each film costing around $80 million to make, the Grown Ups movies are fairly expensive big-screen comedies. The staggering price tag might be due to the stacked and star-studded casts. Fortunately for the studio, the high-budget gambit most assuredly paid off, as the two films collectively brought in over $500 million. With that much on-screen talent, you'd think they'd be at least, well, what's the word? Funny?
I can't let go, I'm too scared!
Feeling more like drawn-out hang sessions amongst celebs than full-fledged stories, both Grown Ups films boast lame humor and jokes that tend to miss the mark completely. And the Rotten Tomatoes scores add up to less than 20% approval, combined. We hope they were fun to film because they're not as much fun to watch. Number 18, Pearl Harbor. In all honesty, we could probably list a lot of Michael Bay movies here. And don't worry, we will. One particularly egregious pick that we had to highlight from his explosive filmography was Pearl Harbor. While most of his movies are going for pure dumb fun, this World War II blockbuster does so at the expense of a real American tragedy. As if mere historical inaccuracies weren't bad enough, Bay sandwiches a hackneyed love triangle in the middle of all the action that's more artificial than the special effects.
You know, I could get kicked out of the military for this.
Really?
Yeah, stay down.
But Titanic fever must have still been in effect, as the hunger for a new romantic disaster epic was potent enough for the film to pull in nearly $450 million worldwide. Number 17, Clash of the Titans. This movie is good for one line and one line only.
Release the Kraken!
Apparently, Warner Brothers knew that too and featured the Kraken introduction heavily in the marketing campaign. At the end of the day, the film pulled in just shy of $500 million. As great as the trailers were, the final product was one deemed devoid of personality.
One day, somebody's gonna have to make a stand. One day, somebody's gonna have to say enough.
An action franchise centering around Greek mythology should be appetizing and awesome. But even the visual effects, which should be the most reliable aspect, fell flat. You could blame the studio for forcing a film shot in 2 dimensions to be converted into 3D following the massive success of Avatar. However, we're pretty sure Medusa turned this movie to stone long before the studio interfered. Number 16, the Fantastic Four franchise. Although it's certainly the worst of the bunch, we're not talking about the 2015 movie here. That film rightly bombed big time. Rather, we're focusing on the slightly better, though still lackluster, incarnations of Marvel's first family. The two films didn't make the kind of money superhero movies are accustomed to today. However, 2005's Fantastic Four and its sequel, Rise of the Silver Surfer, still managed to collectively bring in over $630 million. While those high returns were enough to compensate the studio, the profits were of little comfort to critics.
Oh my God! Come on!
Both films struggled to balance lighthearted humor and emotional moments with thrilling action sequences. It's probably for the best that the team is getting an MCU reboot.
Let me explain.
No, don't touch me!
Jabs!
Number 15, Shrek the Third and Shrek Forever After. The first two Shrek movies were like something out of a storybook, but the films that came after kind of made us wish the franchise stopped adding chapters. By the time Shrek the Third came out in 2007, the franchise's once fresh and satirical approach to fairy tale characters began to feel tired and stale. Shrek Forever After only made the whole story worse by tacking on a wholly unnecessary episode after the trilogy concluded.
Oh, that's diabolical.
Thankfully, DreamWorks took the hint and focused on other projects, for a while. Despite their lukewarm reception, those later sequels combined to rake in over $1.5 billion worldwide. A number that high makes us sure we'll be returning to the swamp sooner or later. Number 14, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. To put it in wrestling terms, this was the heavyweight bout fans of superhero movies had been waiting for. So naturally, it couldn't help but disappoint.
Next time they shine your light in the sky, don't go to it.
Even if we put aside our admittedly high expectations, Batman vs. Superman is simply unable to support its bloated story structure and questionable characterizations. From a Jolly Rancher-eating Lex Luthor to two titans infamously bonding over a maternal first name, this event film was poorly conceived from the start.
Born to destroy you. Your doomsday.
Not even the awesome cinematic debut of Wonder Woman could save it from crashing into the boards. Though the studio probably wanted more, we're not exactly inclined to feel bad about the film's worldwide gross of nearly $874 million. Number 13, Cars 2. Pixar probably has the most consistent track record of any major studio. However, everyone has a black sheep. For Pixar, it's Cars 2. While the whole franchise has plenty of detractors, defenders of the first and third installments have a tougher task when defending the second. That's because it takes a narrative departure from the standard formula of following Lightning McQueen. Cars 2 thrusts the already bothersome Mater into the spotlight in a spy caper that's neither that clever nor funny.
I never properly introduced myself. Finn McMissile, British intelligence.
Toll Mater, average intelligence.
It's almost as if it was written by children instead of being made for them to enjoy. Still, we doubt the brass at Disney care too much, as the sequel netted them $562 million from the box office and likely tons of merchandise sales.
Fellas, listen. I know what you're going through. Everybody's been laughing at me my whole life, too. But becoming powerful and rich beyond your wildest dreams ain't gonna make you feel better.
Number 12, The Hangover Part 2. What's the worst way to follow a surprise hit that was praised for its inventive setup? Make the exact same movie.
Where the hell are you?
It happened again.
Don't say that.
While some of the humor of the first Hangover hasn't aged well, it's still a lot funnier than what's on display in Part 2, which fell flat right from the get-go.
Sometimes you sit down. Enough. That's good. Oh God, you killed it.
Granted, following up a story with such an insular plot would be difficult for any writer, but you can also just not make a movie, right? Well, the studio clearly saw dollar signs and were rewarded for duplicating a hit film with a nearly $587 million global box office take. Granted, the equally terrible Part 3 managed to triple its own budget, but at least that one tried to do something different. Number 11, Spider-Man 3. When it comes to bloated superhero movies, Spider-Man 3 actually gives Batman vs. Superman a run for its money. Before mega franchises like the MCU existed, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were the definitive superhero adaptations. So after 2 great movies, a 3rd installment was never in doubt. While the film took in nearly $900 million worldwide, many think it's less than deserving of that take.
We can find a way to settle this.
You're so right. I'm thinking humiliation.
A drastic shift in tone yielded some hugely cringy moments, from a wholly unconvincing Venom to a poorly timed emo Peter dance sequence. While it's evident that there's a satisfying story in there somewhere, a jumbled execution made the conclusion to the trilogy wildly underwhelming. Number 10. All the Ice Age sequels. The first Ice Age movie put former 20th Century Fox's Blue Sky Studios on the map back in 2002, and although it was a respectable film, the studio's reliance on repetitive sequels made the franchise feel more and more prehistoric. From 2006 onwards, the 4 sequels managed to lessen in quality each time out.
This is too hot, the Ice Age was too cold. What would it take to make you happy?
By the time Collision Course came out in 2016, people were hoping the franchise would finally go extinct.
Do you mind?
Boy, he really sucks the fun out of everything, doesn't he?
Fun sucker!
While there's no end in sight yet, there's no questioning how lucrative the films were. The 4 sequels alone brought in around $2.8 billion. Now that Disney's in charge, further adventures are bound to be coming our way. Number 9. The Emoji Movie. Is there an animated movie that's earned more ire and eye rolls than the Emoji Movie? Although it was already fighting a losing battle with critics prior to its release, with such a groan-inducing concept, the finished product proved those critics right and then some.
Abort! Abort! Oh, shut it down! Shut it down!
The Emoji Movie was hugely derivative of more creative kids' fare. This cyber adventure filled older audiences with contempt for emojis, while not proving particularly popular among younger viewers either. Still, none of that stopped it from earning $217 million at the box office, a result that's way more disappointing than getting a meh emoji in your messages.
I gotta be meh. I gotta be meh.
Number 8. After Earth. After Signs, M. Night Shyamalan's movies struggled to connect with moviegoers, but one of his least successful efforts has to be the sci-fi survival film After Earth. Although Will Smith had a ton of on-screen chemistry with his son in the pursuit of happiness, pretty much none of it is on display in this film.
What was your mistake? Trusting me? Depending on me, thinking that I could do this?
Each and every line is delivered with the charisma of a coconut. Not only that, but the otherworldly design and execution of the creatures in the setting were particularly lacking. As poor as Shyamalan's reputation was in 2013, about $244 million worth of moviegoers didn't get the memo.
Hey, Dad.
Hey.
That sucked.
That is correct.
Number 7, 2012. Roland Emmerich has made a name for himself directing a plethora of disaster movies, but none of them were quite as disastery as 2009's 2012.
When they tell you not to panic, that's when you run!
Playing off the Mayans' prediction that the world would end in the titular year, the plot ushers in an endless series of worldwide devastation. From volcanic eruptions to earthquakes and tsunamis, the mindless action goes on and on. It's overwhelming to the point that the indulging of apocalyptic fiction simply becomes exhausting.
Kind of galling when you realize that nutbags with the cardboard signs had it right the whole time.
It doesn't help that the film employs every cliche in the book that Emmerich is known for. But it turns out these cliches were quite lucrative. 2012 scared up a robust $791 million worldwide. Thank goodness the real 2012 wasn't so bad. Number 6, The Last Airbender. Okay, as bad as After Earth is, it is no The Last Airbender. There's likely no adaptation that's crushed the spirits of fans more than this one. Pretty much anything that can go wrong with a movie goes wrong here.
Katara!
Stilted dialogue, poor acting, lame action sequences, and rushed storytelling are only the tip of the iceberg. While the word was out fairly quickly about this stinker, it still managed to cross the $300 million milestone mark. While hardly the most successful blockbuster out there, the incredibly low quality of this film warrants its high ranking on our list. Honestly, if it had only made $5, we still would have considered it.
could be friends, you know.
Number 5. Transformers: Age of Extinction. Nope, we're still not done touching on Michael Bay movies. This list wouldn't be complete without talking about this Decepticon-sized turd. Age of Extinction became the second highest grossing movie of the Transformers franchise by taking in over $1 billion worldwide. Its success completely quashed the idea that the franchise would slow down when the original stars stepped away.
Don't you get it? We don't need you anymore.
In place of Sam Witwicky came a very un-Texan Mark Wahlberg and a teenage love story that made us say ew instead of aww.
This is not happening. Oh, it definitely is.
The films really seemed to think that giant robots riding giant robot dinosaurs would be enough to make the story appealing, but it somehow ruined that concept while dashing our hopes that future mainline sequels would ever be good. Number 4. Suicide Squad. The fact that this off-kilter DCEU offering raked in nearly $750 million can arguably be attributed to a truly inspired marketing campaign. However, the creativity seen in the promotional materials was wasted on one of the messiest superhero stories ever put to film.
All of that chit-chat's gonna get you hurt.
Oh my God.
Feeling like a multitude of different movies stitched together, Suicide Squad threw a genuinely charismatic cast into a seemingly shoddily written and tonally inconsistent adventure. And perhaps the worst part about this misfire was seeing the faint glimmers of genius just begging to be put in a better movie.
Seriously, what the hell's wrong with you people?
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
Hopefully the next Suicide Squad movie directed by James Gunn will redeem the franchise. Number 3. The 50 Shades franchise.
Do you remember your safe word?
It's honestly a shame that the top 10 version of this list came out before these movies, because they most certainly would have made the cut. Let us rectify that. Each film in the 50 Shades trilogy features some of the most groan-inducing and contrived characterizations in any romantic drama. Of course, it wouldn't have been successful if it didn't have its fans, as the series made over $1.3 billion off a combined budget of just $150 million. That said, we can't help but wonder how many of those box office dollars came from hate watchers, as the laughable dialogue and lackluster love scenes aren't apt to make many hot under the collar.
Because I'm 50 shades of up.
Number 2. Transformers. Although the first Transformers flick was moderately well received upon release in 2007, its incessant sequels have made this film look worse. We have this movie to blame for establishing the raucous and nearly incomprehensible action the series would be known for. Not only do parts of it come off as misogynistic, but Michael Bay's signature pairing of juvenile humor and over-the-top visuals proves particularly grating here.
You have a rodent infestation. Shall I terminate?
No, it's not a rodent, he's a chihuahua. This is my chihuahua. We love chihuahuas, don't we?
While it was no critical darling, it was clear to Paramount that they had a future franchise on their hands. The film kicked off the series by bringing in nearly $710 million when all was said and done. If only the franchise could have ended right then and there.
Like us, there's more to them than meets the eye.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Twilight Saga. It's not every day that a 5-movie franchise as bad as the Twilight Saga makes a total of $3.3 billion worldwide. The massive success of these films is a testament to the loyalty of the built-in fan base, but even the most die-hard fans can see the franchise's flaws.
But he's got his hooks in you so deep.
Almost every single character is an unlikable blah. The dialogue and character motivations were both written so poorly that we were almost convinced that talented actors like Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were total hacks.
So easy for you to leave.
Leaving you was the hardest thing I've done in 100 years.
And after 5 lackluster flicks, the franchise was unable to even give us a truly cathartic finale. Ultimately, the Twilight Saga left us feeling like a vampire left out in the sun too long. And not the kind that sparkles either. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.